joining us on the phones. Always a pleasure to visit with our next guest, State Senator Drew Springer, joining us on the Chad Hasty Show. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Chad. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate you joining us today. And the reason I invited you on the show, you sent out a picture on Twitter this morning saying that you were with Chairman Burrows over the weekend, former House Speaker Dennis Bonnen, and that y'all had discussed HB3, which among the news media in the state, I don't think it's making really any headlines just yet. I'm sure it will pretty soon, but on Twitter and social media, this has become a lightning rod of a bill. Tell us why, at least from where you're standing. Of course, you're not the author of the bill. You're in the Senate. From what your discussions have been, why do you think this is a good bill right now?
Because I think when you look at the points, the really 8 or 9 big items that they're trying to address, it's things that we would want to make sure that happens and happens correctly. Now, having been served 4 terms in the House, I know what it is to get a bill back from Leg Council that doesn't do it exactly the way you want. And there is speed to file to be able to be out there, and you don't try to get it perfect before you let everybody look at it. And so talking with Chairman Burrows, I know that there are some things in that bill he is definitely going to change, like when it deals with federal government. None of us want Dr. Fauci to be able to tell us what we can do in Texas, and Dustin is definitely in that same camp. But, look, I mean, the 9 big things when we sit here and talk about it, hey, you can't close churches. You can't take away our Second Amendment rights and those businesses to be able to provide, guns and ammo to us. We can't let the locals be changing the election code right before the election. We give liability protections for businesses. There's liability protections for volunteers. If cities shut down businesses, then they can't raise taxes. They have to go to the no new tax rate. And I think that may make them think twice before they decide to shut down businesses, knowing that they just, it's tough on the businesses, but they could just raise taxes to be able to do that. It stops the threat of, sending people to jail for, if there was a mask or there was whatever the mandate was. The mandate is you got to walk backwards, and somebody doesn't do it, they don't get thrown in jail for something like that. And it stops a lot of the local orders that would be implemented otherwise. And so with the spirit of that, I think it's what I'm looking for. I think it would partner perfectly with my Senate Bill 422, which basically gives the governor 7 days under a disaster act before he has to have a panel for the next 21 days before the legislature gets called back in. And I think if you partner something together, I think that's what we're looking for. And so I agree with Dustin in the spirit of what we're trying to do here.
Okay, and this is where I think some of the criticism that I've seen online, and I know you've been dealing with some of it as well, just kind of getting into discussions with folks, that the bill as it's written right now in HB3, it does not necessarily curtail any of the governor's actions that he has taken in this pandemic, correct?
In the regards of no, he has those up in there, and that's why the legislature has to be able to be called back in there. But it does curtail. I mean, I think you have, we've had churches closed in there. We've had gun stores closed in there called non-essential. So it does take it back.
But those weren't because of the governor, were they? I mean, those were cities and counties. I think what the criticism
I guess the governor gave that ability to the cities and counties. So in my respect, I think we're taking that away from him to give that ability over.
Okay, and so let's say the mask ban, or the mask ordinance, for example, would the governor still under the way that this bill is written so far? Would the governor still be able to say, you've got to wear a mask in the state of Texas?
The governor would be able to do that under the way he has written that. Okay. That is correct.
Okay.
And that's why I said, now look, unless he's planning on changing that some aspect as well, I know that when we were talking about the federal government CDC guidelines, that's when we realized, we don't want the feds telling us what to do in that regard.
Right. And that's something that's going to be changed in the bill. So walk us through this process, because I thought something else that you had something else that you had just said also struck a chord with me, which is, and I've been going through this bill even more so today, and I don't see. The only thing I see where the legislature would get involved is if the legislature decides they want to get involved in this, and that the governor's emergency order would last for 30 days, but there's no mechanism bringing the legislature together. You have a bill that would do that. So how does that mesh? How would we mesh those two bills into a really good bill that everyone could get behind?
No, and in fact, in talking with Chairman Burrows, I mean, I know that the way this bill is written, it can have amendments to where even my bill could be added on to Chairman Burrows' bill as an amendment. As I said, mine basically lets the legislature come back or forces us to come back 30 days after a disaster is declared. But we also have sort of, just like the counties and cities do today, the mayor and the county judge get 7 days before they have to get the council and the commissioners court involved. I think we ought to have the same format for Texas as well, because then you have more elected officials having to answer to their constituents that will make sure that, the group as a whole is going in the right direction.
So from what it sounds like, this bill is not the final draft, that this is going to go through some changes.
No, it's far from it. And I think that, most people realize that when they see it. Look, TPPF is supporting this bill. The NRA is supporting it. Texas Value is supporting it. All of our good conservative groups that we look to, except for one, the one who loves to attack the governor for being in a wheelchair. They're the ones who don't like it.
And listen, I one thing I agree with you on, I think there needs to be some mechanism where you guys get called in automatically. And I think that's what, do you think that there's a sentiment right now within the Senate and within the House for something like that mechanism to be into place in the final bill?
I think there is. I mean, I can't probably speak to the House as much, but I can tell you right now that I just joint authored a bill with Brian Birdwell that probably had every Republican on it as well, which does a little bit different format than mine. His basically just has the legislature being called in 30 days after an emergency declaration. I sort of like having that in-between stage, and I'll work with Senator Birdwell to see if I can get that part added to his bill. But I know that he is, so I can tell you the Senate is very much in favor of putting something together. And if Chairman Burrows' bill makes it over here with that on it, I've spoke to him and he said, look, add your bill onto it. I'm fine with that.
Very good.
So I think we can make it a great bill.
All right. State Senator Drew Springer, appreciate your time as always. We'll let you get back to work and we'll visit with you later.
All right, Chad, appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.